Well, hello and welcome to the Sports Bar Show, Chewing the Fat and Talking Balls here at the Sports Bar at Bacup, Borough. I'm Stephen Brown. Alongside me is the manager here at Bacup, Borough. That is Brent Peters.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing all right.
I'm fine for a Saturday.
I'll tell you what, it's a bit hot in here.
Well, it needs to be
You must
because
have left the heating on last night.
last night, well, I had some clothes to dry. My clothes.
I know they're
Because
all over the place.
I brought my washing to the club to wash.
That's because you were here all day yesterday, though, weren't you? You were busy.
There was a funeral here yesterday, and would you believe, you're going to ask me if I watched the game last night, and I'm going to tell you that there were more enjoyment when I looked out this window and saw a few girls playing with a ball outside here than what they were watching that England-Scotland game.
Yeah, it were dire, weren't it? But we're going to get on to that, because it's not something we've had a chat about this morning. You said, oh, no, I don't want to talk about that. I'll talk about it on the sports bar. So we're going to talk about that. Two other things as well we're going to be chatting about. A few weeks' time, the signings or the paperwork needs to be... Start the paperwork, don't you, for the North West Counties? Is it the 1st of July? Talking about signings and players.
You mean registering players?
Yeah.
Well, we can register players as soon as they release the registrations, but yeah, 1st of July.
Yeah.
Basically, you can't sign any players unless they're contract players in June because it's out of season. It's classed as close season.
Yeah. So we'll pick up on that one. And then also another one is, we spoke about it the other day, the possibility of Rafa Benitez going to Everton. And a lot of people on social media not happy about that situation, not happy in general of ex-pros, whatever, ex-managers of rival clubs going to the opposing clubs. It's nonsense, isn't it?
You want me to talk about that?
Yeah, I do.
Right, okay. Yeah, I do. I think 100% it's nonsense. I mean, let's be honest. Clubs, when you go to a club appoints you because at that particular time, when a club appoints you, they think that you're the best person available at that time for that job. Now, when you're in that job and you're employed in that job, then you're going to do your best that you can for the club that you're employed by. And if you're good at your job, then obviously other clubs are going to take note and you might become a target where they want to come and headhunt you. In the case of Rafa Benitez, he's being the manager of Liverpool, as you know, and obviously there's local, strict, serious rivalry in Merseyside, kind of with Liverpool and Everton. And if you want to throw Tranmere into the mix, then Tranmere as well. But there's a lot of water passed under the bridge since he was the Liverpool manager, and he's available. And if Everton feel that he's equipped for the job, then what is the problem? Because then obviously he'll go from being a red to being a blue. Is there a problem with that? Brian Kidd, I mean, I'm going to come back to the Man United scenario. Brian Kidd played for Manchester United. Great player for Manchester United, coached at Manchester United, but moved on across the city. But it is what it is. He's gone across the city and he's a part of Pep's backroom staff. If given the plight that Manchester United have been in recently, and I'm not saying this against Ole or anything, but if Pep became available and I were in charge of Manchester United, would I want Pep? Well, he'd certainly be one that'd be high up my list.
On the short list, at least.
So why would you not go and get him? And I'll put it in another way, right? We've got young money. You've got players coming to their end of their careers. That's take Frank Lampard, that was a great player for Chelsea, and then you've got Steve Gerrard, who was a great player at Liverpool. Both those players coming to their ends of the footballing career, and both want to take up management. So Steve Gerrard, as we know, has gone up to Rangers and done extremely well. So let's just talk Steve Gerrard a minute. So let's just say you know, hypothetically, that a staunch rival of, we'll have to use Manchester United because the biggest rival of Liverpool is Manchester United.
Yeah.
But just let's say that, you know, that Ollie were to move on to pastures new. He'd done his time at Man United and done really, really, you know, he'd done well, but he moved on. For whatever reason, he felt that he weren't going to stay at Manchester United any longer. Let's just say that for this show. And out there's a manager available, or a top manager, a young manager that's done really well at Rangers, and he wants to cut his teeth. Do you think that Steve Gerrard won't go to Manchester United if he got offered the chance?
Well, it'd be stupid not to.
Well, exactly. So my point being, on that score, I'm not so sure that Manchester United would target Steve Gerrard. I'm not saying, but what I'm trying to say is, let's put it in reverse. If Steve Gerrard, who's been an exceptional player for Liverpool, you know, wanted to come back and manage in England, and there was a job available that was one of Liverpool's arch rivals, but would that deter Steve Gerrard? He's not going to be a one-trick player. He's going to think, I'm just going to hang out for Liverpool, because Liverpool job might not never come his way.
Exactly. So
it's never going to happen, that. So I kind of don't get it, me. I think if you're good at your job and you're good at what you do, and you know you're probably the best person available out there, irrespective of rivalries, then you know you go and take that job. It could even be said, even in non-league football, if we drop right down to where we are, Rosendale United, which is were, I mean, obviously sadly they're in demise now, but Rosendale United, the two major players in the Rosendale Valley, and the two historic clubs was Rosendale United and Bacup Borough.
Yeah.
And you know, if you put a line down, you know, going across the valley, the top half of the valley was kind of Bacup, the bottom half, middle to bottom half, was Rosendale United, and they were arch rivals. And you know, but over time, there's players that's crossed from Rosendale and gone and played for Bacup, and there's players from Bacup gone down and played for Rosendale. And equally, that's the same thing that's happened with managers. You know, I represented, managed the reserves at Rosendale United, was quite successful, and then I went on to manage the first team at Rosendale United, quite successful, and then I've come down to Bacup Borough, that's an arch rival, and been quite successful. But it is what it is. You know, you just move on, and you know, my heart is at Bacup Borough because I'm now at Bacup Borough. But it you know, when Rosendale United were going, I know we drew against Rosendale United in the FA Vars, and nothing I wanted more to go back to Dark Lane and stick it up them.
Yeah.
Simple as.
Well,
and we did do.
But that's the professional, isn't it? When you're employed by a club or whatever, you want to do the best you can for that club. And the same, you know, whether you're a manager or... Well,
it's a player in anything. If you've been a great player over years, like I touched on Brian Kidd, you know, you've been a great player. Why, you know, if the opportunity was available, and you had a better opportunity from being at the club where you're at to go to a rival, then you'd go to a rival. And why should that rival club not welcome you in and try and attract you if you're good at your job? And we've seen many people, you know, it's happened at a lot of clubs and a lot of places. I mean, you can even break that down to players. I mean, we touched on this show last week, we touched on, you know, kind of with Reece James going to Blackpool, and we touched on Preston. So if you look at a situation here, you know, like Jamie Oyland, who's been on this show, who we know very, very well. Yeah. Jamie Oyland's played at Burnley, and probably back in the day, one of Burnley's rivals was Borough. But he's also played at Borough, but it didn't stop him going to Burnley. No. You know, he goes on and on. Yeah. So who's these people? It's the staunch Everton, probably the few really staunch, but I'm reading things where I'm saying, you know, that's it, that's my end of my reign at supporting Everton, you know, they've gone for a Rafa Benitez. What sort of, that is absolutely bananas. Yeah. And
just look at the quality that the man possesses. Look what he's going to be bringing to the club if if he does come to the club?
Well, people
You've got
will
to see beyond that, haven't you?
people will have opinions like they have opinions about any manager. You know, there'll be people that'll be for Rafa Benitez, there'll be people that are against Rafa Benitez. But the bottom line is he did well for Liverpool. You know, you could even say that to a point he did all right up at Newcastle in difficult circumstances, as I think Steve Bruce is doing all right in difficult circumstances. It's toxic, is Newcastle. It's a toxic place. But equally, I would think that kind of Merseyside probably, with what I'm reading, can be a bit toxic. And I just think that, you know, if he's the best man available out there and, you know, and he wants to go to Everton, what's wrong with that just because he's managed Liverpool? I think that's small-minded people thinking that, short-sighted people.
Yeah.
You know, and go, you know, to me, you know, if he ticks the box, then that's water under the bridges of the Liverpool days.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about the registrations because I do want to talk about that at some stage. We're only a few weeks left before we can start doing that. But the England game, that's the big talking point on this show because I actually sat down and watched the entire match. You probably watched most of it.
Well, I did. I mean, I didn't. Unfortunately, I got stuck here at the club.
Yeah,
and,
you like to be at home when you watch.
I like to be like really settled down and really study the game properly. There were a lot of things going on here, but I was watching it and I was watching it. So yeah. I mean, it weren't the best. It weren't the best of games. But listen, I'm see. You know, if you'd have asked me a question before the game,
yeah.
It's funny because Pete Monteith. For those who don't know Pete Monteith, former goalkeeper of ours.
Yeah.
Pete Monteith actually rang me up over another matter. Must with my days. I met every day. It's Saturday today, so the game must have been Friday, so it must have been Thursday night.
Yeah.
So late on Thursday night, Pete Monteith rings me up over another matter, and we got on about
the big match.
He touched on England, Scotland, and my exact words, without anything else, I said, "Don't be surprised if England get beat."
Well, I was thinking.
That's exactly what I said, and that doesn't mean they're taking anything away from England. I just said, "Don't," and he went, "Give over." I went, "Well,
no, yeah.
I don't think. Let's put it this way: I don't think Scotland will.
Not going to roll over.
I don't think Scotland will lose, and I didn't think Scotland would lose. So going into that game, I mean, it's easy for me to say it now because we're on a show and it's after the event. But I honestly, Pete Monteith will tell you, if you spoke to Pete Monteith, that's exactly what I said. And he was looking at me like, nah, as though it was a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
But it was never going to be a foregone conclusion. And I think all these people that are kind of slaughtering and having a go at Gareth Southgate this morning need to give their head a wobble and wind their necks in. Because, you know, there's a bigger picture here. And as Gary Neville quite rightly said a few days on interview before the tournament started, Gareth Southgate is the best manager for England at this present time, you know, to take England into a tournament. He's the best, he's the most equipped. Now, I'd sooner listen to Gary Neville, somebody that's been a part of the England setup, as a player and both as a coach. So I'd sooner listen to Gary Neville's version of events and listen to half of these blinking idiots on social media that are bleating that he's not tactical aware and he can't get his tactics right. The only thing that I think these people who are saying that, and these people on social media who are actually saying it, are probably civil engineers or wagon drivers or bus drivers or bus conductors, certainly not anybody from the professional game, and probably those people who are actually saying that, and he's not tactical aware and he's got no tactical astuteness. Probably the only thing that they know about tactics is them little black things you used to get in a tin. You get me?
Yeah. Tic Tacs.
Tic Tac. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's bonkers.
So go on then, break it down for us then.
Well, first and foremost,
in layman's terms.
well, everybody's having a go about because he didn't select Grealish. I agree to a point that Grealish should have been in the starting lineup, but let's cut away. We're in. Gareth Southgate with the England squad has got a squad full of
kids.
A squad full of luxuries He's got quality players in his camp.
Who is
technically gifted. So whenever he picks a team, you're going to get a cross-section of people that are going to turn around and say, well, what a blinking team. Why has he not picked him? And why has he not picked him? Or he should start. Right? That's what you're going to get. Let's break that down. That's what you're going to get. You're not going to please everybody. All over the country are not going to say, great team. That's the team I would have picked. That's a great side. You're not going to get that. You're always going to get an element of people that are going to say whether, you know, even the Burnley fans up this side would be saying Pope should be in before, what's he called? Keeper. Have you lost his name?
Brain freeze.
Right. Pickford. Right. So you know.
Henderson. Either of them.
Yeah. So you know people will say that because they you know for their own ends. Now Grealish is a very very talented lad and he does make things happen and Grealish rightly so, he's a player on form and rightly so he should have been in contention.
As soon as he gets the ball he does make a big
he makes things happen. But let's start. Let's cut this back a little bit, right? So let's just cut this back, and we'll use Sterling. Is Sterling a player that can make things happen? Yes or no? Is he a player that can make things happen?
Yes, he can.
There you go. I agree. So tick the box. He can make things happen. Right. Can Phil Foden make things happen?
Yes, he can.
Tick a box. Right? Can Jack Grealish make things happen?
Certainly.
Tick a box. Of course he can. Right? Can Marcus Rashford make things happen?
Yes, he can.
Tick a box. Can Harry Kane finish things if he gets the supply or make things happen?
9 times out of 10, yeah.
Tick a box. But you can only pick 3. So somebody's going to be sat out, sit back. So he's picked what he thought to go into that game, what he thought, and he's the manager, coach, would do that job, right, against them. Now this is where I come in now and say, instead of having a go at Southgate, and instead of having a go of who he's selected, let's be honest, we've just said, you've just answered the question, these are players that can make things happen. So he's picked players that can make things happen. So let's have one thing straight, right? He's not going to win whoever he picks in because people will say, well, the other person should be in. So my point is, going into that game, why are we not giving Scotland some mounting credit because they know that, and he's even Clark in his interviews has said it, that England have got a talented squad. His actual words, play it ball back, a talented squad. We are, you know, probably more talented than the Scotland squad, but one word he used, we won't fear them.
Correct.
Right? And they didn't fear them.
No.
And one thing about Scotland, what they did, which is what I love anyway, because that's what I'm about, right? Because we always say that there's that saying in there, you know, your skill factor is only 1% of what will win your game. You know, you've got to have the work rate that goes with the skill. And the one thing about Scotland, they were set up, right, to make it very, very difficult for England. Right, but when they won the ball with aggression, and I'm not being nasty when I say aggression, I mean
no, it was
controlled aggression. They was in the faces, they were winning the balls, they were going in,
the second ball,
they was winning everything, they was concentrating all over the pitch. But when they got the ball and they started to build play going forward, they actually did build.
There was always an option.
There was options, and they were building, and they had good opportunities. Right now. The one thing that Scotland lack, which would have probably took them over the line in a win, they don't have a kind of a natural finish. You know, we might say that, you know, what's he called up front? I can't think of his name now, but he's Scottish.
They're like Ted Ali McCoy.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But him up front, right, he doesn't score that many goals. Dykes, he doesn't score that many goals in the club he plays for. So what I'm trying to say is probably that's where, but let's give them some mounting credit. So it doesn't, in my opinion, it wouldn't have mattered whether he started with Grealish, because even when Grealish come on, as good as it. Listen,
wasn't effective.
Back in the day when you used to introduce George Best, now you might not remember George Best, right?
I've seen the videos.
But let me tell you could bring George Best on and he could turn it on like that.
There was an impact.
There was an impact straight away. Now, don't matter how much they gave you in attention, he'd be putting people on the backsides, right? Leaving them in the wake and blinking finishing, right? Yeah. Now then, Grealish has come on there. Now, all right, the cynics out there will turn around, well, he ain't got enough time, had he, to get into game. Bollocks, excuse the French, right? He still didn't have a real impact. No. He didn't waste the ball.
He still said that in the post-match.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't hear it in the post-match.
He actually came out and said, you know, even give Scotland credit. The fact that Grealish came on and was less effective as Foden tells you everything that you need to know about Scotland. And
exactly. Anybody who knows anything about football is bang on. Yeah. And this is what gets me about the ex-pros. I've seen some ex-pros on this morning on social media. I'm not going to mention their names, but they're ex-pros and they're going, you know, they're like hashtagging Southgate out. And I'm thinking, hang on, are you going to tell me? One of them played for Burnley, and it weren't Jamie Ireland, by the way, right, what I were reading. He played for Burnley. I'm not going to mention no more, I'm not going to give you any more clues, but he played for Burnley. So this guy, are we going to tell me that every game that he's played for Burnley, right, that he played for Burnley, that they didn't play against teams that absolutely made Burnley look terrible? Because he will have done. He'll have played in games where they've worked really hard, the opposition, and obviously, so he should understand more than most because he's played in teams and against teams where that's happened. So he should understand more than most that it's not always, you know, there's two sides to every game of football. There's two teams. So while one team can set up and we'll play this way and this is how we'll play, the other team are trying to stop you. Right, which is what it's all about.
To nullify you.
So nullify him, which is what Scotland did, and that's why Foden, obviously for me, I thought Foden were the pick of the ones that were trying to do something. He was the pick, but
I think that's why everyone was shocked that it was Foden and not Sterling who made way for Grealish.
Well, anybody who knows about football, right, and I'll stand to be shouted down here, but anybody who knows anything about football. Why if you're going to take Harry Kane off, why would you put Grealish on for Harry Kane?
Two completely different players.
It's a different position.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're going to if you want to introduce, let's tell it another way. If you want to introduce Grealish, who's he going to come on for? He's going to come on for either Foden or he's going to come on for Sterling. That's them are the positions he's playing. Yeah. So if you started with Grealish and you didn't put Sterling on from the beginning, or you didn't put Foden on, who do you think Foden's going to come on for? Who do you think he's covering? If you're a manager and you think, right, this is my starting 11, now if something happens in that position, he's there and he's going to come on in that position. That's your cover player. So which way they do it, so to turn around when that first sub board goes up and thinks, why has he not put Grealish on? It was either Foden had to go off or Sterling had to go off. Now, I get their argument that why did he not take... I get this. Why has he took Foden and not Sterling?
Yeah.
He should have took... Based on the performance, it should have been Sterling.
Yeah.
I get that. I get it. I get that. But, I do get that. But, in all fairness, when people are turning around and going, well, he's took Kane off... but he hasn't brought Grealish on. Well, Grealish was never going to go. It was always going to be Marcus Rashford that were going to take the place of Kane. Now, whether Kane should have started is another matter. Now, we could all have an opinion about the team shape and should he have played the team shape. We can all have opinions about team shape. You know, maybe to get the best out of. To try and play with wingers against Scotland, maybe he could have gone a 4-4-1-1 formation against their formation, because you'd still kind of had three in midfield, because the one would kind of be at the tip of the midfield, if you follow me.
Scotland's midfield had a very good game last night.
Well, they had an excellent game, and that's what I'm saying. Stop getting on for Southgate's back, you know, and look at the bigger picture and give Scotland a lot of credit.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where I can't say no more really. I just think it's unfair on what they're doing. But you're always going to get that. You're probably always going to get it. But some people need to wind their necks up. I mean, when I saw that this morning about some guy that's going on and he's bleating about, you know, we need Southgate out. He's not technically aware, and he got technically outthought by Clark. Outthought by Clark, technically. It weren't blinking stupid, it weren't ridiculous. It were obvious, weren't it? Clark knows that the potential, it don't matter. It doesn't matter whether he was starting with Grealish, or whether he was starting with Foden, or whether he was starting with Sterling, or whether he was starting with Rashford. Clark knew, and he'd be telling his defence, this is how we're going, and we've got to double up here, double up there, just keep you concentrated. Doesn't matter which one of them play, they're all likely to turn you inside out, create something, just back him up, keep tight, turn, have them facing the other way, whatever. It don't matter, he's sorted it out, that's obvious. He hasn't done anything remarkable, like clever. He's just got his team organised and made sure that they kind of made sure that they gave...
Well, the structure and the discipline was there,
special,
wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the other thing we can criticise England about, because the way that they played, the way that they set up with three at the back, Scotland, that meant it were a great, because they were playing with wing backs. Now, I were probably disappointed with the two full-backs, certainly more, and this isn't being biased because it's Man United, but more Reece James. I felt that he didn't get forward as much as what he should have done, because that's where they had chance, because really, if you think about it, it's full-backs against wing-backs.
Yeah.
And they had a license.
So when they're committing players forward, there's a
when we win the ball, they could go beyond. Yeah. And Shaw did it a few times, to be fair, and we got in a few times because he went down the left-hand side and then he overlapped and he got in the box and played, little 1-2s around the box. Obviously, they defended really well, did Scotland. But I don't think it happened as much on the right as what it did on the left. So listen, it's all right. People saying they didn't look themselves England last night. They didn't. Yeah, maybe you could say that, but you've got to give the opposition credit, and I'd rather give the opposition credit than try and rip pieces out of the England team and the England manager.
Yeah,
that's just me. I wind your necks in, because you won't be saying that if he gets us through into the final stages and gets us up there. I'm not saying we're going to win it, but if he gets us up there into semi-finals, he's done his. Well, some of you lot might think that we should be winning it.
We've never been that far before.
I don't think we should. I don't think we're ready to win it yet, but I'd love to think we will win it. But it's all about, in tournaments, you've got to be astute in weighing everything up, and it's all about picking points up. And
I've got a sneaking feeling for Belgium myself. Brent, what about yourself?
Well, I don't know, because there's a lot of good teams in it. So it's all right saying Belgium. I mean, there's Portugal, there's Italy.
Even the Germans, you can't write.
I mean, Holland's had two good wins. You know what I mean? I mean, there's good sides in it. So I'm not. Listen, I don't bet, because I like to be in control of my destiny. So am I in control?
I've never seen a poor bookie, have you?
Exactly. So I'm not putting no bets on, because at the end of the day, I want to be in control of my own destiny, and certainly putting money over a bookie's counter and backing somebody. The only thing I've done, I've got Portugal in the player sweep here.
That's a good in that.
Yeah, well, there you go. But
Brilliant.
So there we go.
Talking about players sweep, a couple of weeks' time. Registrations in.
No, we haven't signed Sutty and Sweet.
No, we haven't. No. And other clubs have though. They're signing players left, right and centre.
Well, I don't understand it.
Registration's not being put in.
Listen, it happens every year. I just don't...
Because a manager was saying, a good friend of ours...
They're embarrassing.
A good friend of ours was asking the question on social media. I'll say, Michael Morrison, good lad at Padiham, you know him quite well. He was saying, is it good game that I can go out and... get players and tap players up? Well, certainly it is, isn't it?
Michael.
It's open.
If they're non-contract players, Michael...
Go for it.
They're nobody's players. It doesn't matter who they finish the season with. They are nobody's players. They're free. It's the time that you can't. It's not free game. Is once they sign the registration form for the club in whatever league they are participating, then it isn't fair game because they've committed to that football club. But at this moment in time, there's no registration forms, official forms being released. So all these players or clubs that are announcing that they've signed Bill and Ben, the flower pot men, right? They must be signing them on a cigarette paper or on an official football association contract.
Yeah.
Now then, if they signed them on an official football association contract, irrespective of whether the league registrations are out or not, then they are signed and they are a contract player. But if they have not signed a contract for their club or any club, then the ones that haven't are free agents and will remain free agents until they actually sign on the dotted line on an official non-contract form for the relevant clubs out there.
Have you ever had that done to you, Brent, where you've kind of, posted it, done the fanfare, we've signed this player, we've done that, and then all of a sudden they've walked down the road and gone to another team?
No, because I've been in the game too long to know that you wouldn't do that.
Because it does happen, doesn't it?
That's absolutely bonkers. Because I'm not. Steve, you've worked with me, and I keep telling you things. I mean, I told you. Listen, I actually said to you when that tournament that Prestwich A's put out there, when it first came out, I turned to you off the show and said that will never take off. No. And I told you the reasons why.
Because of the implications of it. Yeah.
I told you. Yeah. And I'm not blowing my trumpet. No. I've been in the game. I've done everything in the game. I've been a manager, coach, and I've done all the administration. And I'm not saying I know it all because I'm not. I learn every day. And if I don't know something, I pick a phone up and ask a question. I'll ring John Deal and say, John. But what I'm saying is, I knew that was never going to get off the ground because of all the implications. I mean, fair credit to Matt Barnes for having a go, and it was a great idea, but he looked at it purely and simply with kind of blinkers on in football terms because he's a football manager. That's what he did, but he should have been guided by the people behind him at Prestwich and said, whoa, that can't happen.
There's insurance on this and
everything. There's more. It's all the implications. That it's not as so straightforward. Now he should have been advised, but by the powers that be at Prestwich. I'm not saying he were. I'm not saying he weren't. But what I'm trying to get at here, I said to you once that I went, that's never going to get off the ground. I'll tell you that now. So what I'm trying to say to you is it's the same with players. I can remember, it's up there, right? We won the cup at Tameside Stadium.
Yeah.
We beat Main Road in the League Challenge Cup 5-1, I think it were. In 2011-12, I think it were. 11-12, yeah. Right? With a super side. Quality squad. Captained by Davy Luca, and we got all the lads, and I remember reporting back for pre-season. We sent all the letters out that they're reporting back for pre-season, and at the time we were training Andy Hillary, or it wasn't Dave Felgate who's now head coach. I had Andy Hillier, who was head of player development. And with Jimmy Petruzzi, so Jimmy's still here. And we turned up at Goshen. We sent the letter out. We were training at Goshen in Borough. And I arrived and they went, where's our players, Brent? They looked at me because they didn't know.
Yeah.
They said, where's our player? Where are they all? And I went, what do you mean? I said, they're not our players.
No.
And they looked at me, gone out, what do you mean they're not our players? We won't cope. I said, yeah. But I said, season finished. I said if they were non-contract, they're free agents.
Yeah.
I said so. some of them might go and dip the toe in the water and go and train with Curzon Ashton in pre-season, or go and train with Droylsden, or go and train with FC United.
With someone else, yeah.
So I said, they're not our players. It's my job now to go out and source new players.
But they didn't know the structure.
And that happens every year. The only way to avoid that is make sure you get your players, if you want to get your players, tied up on contract. But FA contract. But I would only be tying players up on FA contracts if I thought they had a net worth. I wouldn't be trying somebody at blinking 30-year-old on a contract.
Gareth Wager, you're not getting a contract.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it just don't make it don't make common sense. But obviously, we're developing players as well. So obviously, if I feel that they've got a net worth, then they will go on contract.
Yeah, lads, in again. You're training are you training twice a week at the moment, Brent, or is it just the once?
Yeah, we're training twice a week. Yeah, because don't forget, we after when it finished the season, we still kind of carried on doing things, didn't we? And we had some friendlies about 6 weeks ago. We had some games, so we decided, like, when the season when the month of May come in, end of April, beginning of May, we just use that as a normal end of season.
Yeah.
So we've given them a break, and now we've brought them back in again, as though we would do for pre-season. So yeah, and then we've got some games lined up for starting in July, although I have promised we might have a game at the last week in June, because a good friend of mine from Atherton Colliery's got in touch with me, so I'm just monitoring that at the minute. Not about our players, but I'm just our contractor who comes to do all the work on the ground. He's too busy with Football League clubs at the minute, and he needs to be hurrying up and coming on here because we start on the 31st of July. So I'm kind of like pushing him, and I think he's sick of me. Well, he's got that sick he's got sick of it because he doesn't answer my phone now anymore, because Football League clubs are more important than little Bacup Borough. I get that, but we still need our work doing.
Yeah. One final point. Last week we spoke about Isle of Man, tongue in cheek. We now kind of know the reasons for the move to the south.
Yeah, I talked tongue in cheek. I said it's the most northerly club and all that, and I'm a bit disappointed that they're not in the North Division for
we're only disappointed. We wanted a bit of a Jolly Boys outing.
Selfish reasons. But apparently it's to do with the flight, and I get this because I represented Paul Fletcher on his testimonial committee. And we actually had quite a few events out on the Isle of Man, and even then, back in the day, the flights, it was very difficult to get boot flights from up here and to get people across. It was extremely difficult, and I think that must be still the case. I think the regular flight, I might be wrong on this, but from reading between the lines, the regular flights that were going like from up this end, Liverpool and kind of Blackpool, I think with Flybe, and apparently they've gone bust. So the flights are restricted from up this end, so there's more chance of getting the flights, more south.
Even Birmingham.
More south based. So I think that is kind of something to do with that is the reason.
Yeah,
so it makes a bit of sense because I do know that booking flights out there can be a bit of a challenge. But I think the biggest challenge is still going to come from the COVID situation.
Yeah.
Because I'm not being funny, and I'm not going to be negative, and I'm not going to say. But I'm telling you, we're not out the woods by a long shot with this COVID, and it only needs it to spike on the Isle of Man, and there'll be nobody going on and going off. So watch this space. But that's not trying to be negative. I'm trying to be as positive as I can, but I'm not stupid.
Yeah. Well, Ronaldo didn't fancy Coke, but we've got Coke. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see it.
He's in a press conference and he sat down and he's got some bottles of Coke here. You know, other drinks are available, and he just pushed them to one side and moved them out the way, and then went, Agua.
All right.
he didn't want to take part in the the advertisement. So I thought that was quite funny. What have you got planned this week? I know you're putting a net up. Hopefully behind that goal.
Yeah, well, we've took the stand.
Massive fish net.
We took the stand down, haven't we? So we've got to put a big run-off net.
It's a massive net.
We go full length, yeah. But the challenge is we've got to.
It's almost 100 metres long.
Yeah. So the challenge is we've got to a gang of men on Thursday night. My friend Darren Quick from Cornerstone Security has promised that he'll come up with his cherry picker, which I'm ever so grateful for. Darren, if you're listening, tuned in. Top guy, Darren. He said he'll be up on Thursday, and then we've got Andrew Walker who'll be directing operations. It's no good asking me. I'd be looking for sky hooks. I'd be trying to find some sky hooks from somewhere. So a few of us will be doing that on Thursday. Yeah.
Good stuff. Anyway, enjoy your week.
Thank you.
See you later.
See you later, folks. Keep off Gareth's back.